Okay, Rabbi say, we're up to the end of Srs15, Srs15. I began to explain what does it mean Kinyan Devarim. Some of you base the end of Srs15. Okay. No. So I want to explain something in Choshen Mishpat, a yesod, a big yesod of side. You know, a kinyan does not help only if I dina momanis. I could say I make a kinyan that whatever the bezdin is going to say, I'm going to give back the object. But you can't make a kinyan. I remember explaining there used to be a moil used to come here, Chabad moil. Training.
No, it's a moil. Moil, I'm sorry. Okay.
So I said a moshel to him then that a guy makes a kinyan. I want you to be a moil, because that's where they fight. Always the mal they call me. That's why I know he's a moil. You know, if mechabed one and changes my mechabed another, they always call me. So hapi halacha, even if you made a kinyan, it's worthless. Kinyan, made a kinyan, you're going to be the moil. Because the father calls up, I have to make a bris, and I'll make a kinyan. The reason the kinyan doesn't help, a kinyan doesn't help to make me do something. Kinyan, I could be koine your coffee, I be koine your gemara, I be koine your money, but it cannot be a kinyan that I'll do something. I made a kinyan, I picked up the gartel that I'll dance at the wedding. I'm going to the wedding. I'm going to dance at the wedding. I'm going to do something. It's based on the Gemara, beginning of a basta.
Doesn't Kinyan make you provide for your wife?
Not the Kinyan, either the Torah or the Rabbanon.
But it's not as a result of the Kinyan?
No, it's not. The Kinyan is only it's a big question what the Kinyan is. You know, there's a famous question in the Elchonon, what is the Kinyan? You know, because Chazal Mechayim is this. So some hold the Kinyan is the Chazal, that the Kinyan makes not the Mezoinus, makes the Kinyan of the Ksuba, of the Messiah Zuz, a Shibid. Because Mezoinus, you have to pay, the Chazal made you pay, told you have to pay Mezoinus. That's a Chir. That's nothing else.
So what's the Kinyan that you make at the
The
Vart?
Vart
For the pictures.
is
The plate.
the play, the other Salah. I have to do something at the Vart. What's that? This to be you can't make a kinyan, I'll get married. You know what the original the kinyan was? That if I don't show up, and if the Kala doesn't show up, they used to rely. I have to explain to you why they made it to 9. Let me be kids explain, the Rishonim explain. What happened was they used to make a Kiddushin, and a year later they used to get married. The Jews always lived between the borders. That was the Ike Panosa. I know you, you know me. So he lived in France, and he lived in Germany, he lived in Hungary. I mean, the borders itself in Germany was divided by the lords, and they couldn't go from one place to another. So that Jews were always, they had a bezdin, so they were the import and export. Once in a while, they made a shidduch, and the borders were closed, finished. You couldn't go. The Pshnei Kotler, Olav Shil was engaged to his scholar for 7 years. Got engaged in Russia, and the communists came in. I don't know which city they lived, and he couldn't get out. His scholar his scholar won them. I mean, it was a marshal, so they stopped making the Kiddushin. Finished, we don't make a Kiddushin, there's someone that's ever good. So they made it together, Edisness, so they made it together. But then, sometimes they prepared everything, and the chassan doesn't come. Good morning. There was no text message, email. You know what I mean? They waited for weeks. He's coming, he's not coming. So they made a tikkun with the Genayda Tanoim, and in the Tanoim they write a knas. That if the chassan says zuktub, how you say zuktub, the shidduch cancels, breaks the shidduch, or the kala breaks the shidduch, there is a knas. Now that knas is an asmachta. So the loike asmachta, the many people challenged that maybe it's still a asmachta. So they made a chedem.
And it was a money fight.
And it means if you don't want the chayrim to be chal, you could be paid with the money. You have to pay the money.
So chayrim can take place even in the case of asmach.
Yeah, well, the chayrim means that if you broke the shidduch, you didn't show up, and without a shus bezdin, unless they have a shus bezdin, that's the good. Kala became the Srs15's son. The Ksav Sefer was engaged to a girl, and there came edis that she went into theater and theater. Sefer made a yeshiva's bezdin, and he broke the shidduch. So he said that he's davening every day. Nothing should happen to Kala because he knew it's not going to be good for the Kala. He broke the shidduch. So he held that she.
But we don't have the knas now.
We don't write, so we stopped doing that. The history was
She married an Israeli.
Kenyan. What did you say?
She probably married an Israeli afterwards.
One second.
So
So what's the point of the Kenyan now?
the Kenyan now is what they do is nothing. Just a Zeicha Balma. The Kenyan is nothing. Nothing. Nothing.
What's the
The
point?
Kenyan is nothing.
But the Kenyan would only be, back then, it would only be if there was a loss of money.
No, there was a knas.
Regardless of what.
Regardless, they made a knas because they hope that people, whenever there's it costs money, pocketbook, you think twice to cancel things. That's why ksuba. I always tell this to young people. At the wedding, imagine the reading the prenuptial agreement. It's when every time a chussan gets married, and I give him the chussan shvit, the first, you know what you're going to read under the chuppah? Prenuptial agreement. What do you mean prenuptial agreement? The ksuba. It says Aramaic, but it's a prenuptial agreement. Why do you think they're reading it? Because Chazal wanted to write a ksuba, shalei kal bein of the garsha. They didn't want to get to be easy. If it doesn't go easy, you make peace. Well, yeah, that's the nature of humans. If you see you can't get divorced, you make peace with the situation. Anyways, so when they made a knas, they made a chayrim, and they made a kinyan on money, a shibud. So you cannot make a kinyan, I'm going to get married. So what we do today, the Rachayim, like he asked you make a kinyan, it's worthless. Well, Lubavitcher showed me, he doesn't write anything, but Lubavitcher showed me that there's someone Ashkenazi wrote a kinteris about the wedding, and he tries to explain the kinyan of the Rav Ashkenazi, and that's so someone wrote a sefer, and he tries to explain what the kinyan is. It doesn't say anything. All due respect. He sees a Talmud Chacham, tries to explain, so what is the kinyan, and so what the kinyan, and he tries to explain, and then he says nothing. He's bothered, what is the kinyan? It's a minig, it says a zeicher, and it brings down a sichas, and Nigla, he didn't answer it. He starts with the kasha, but he himself doesn't have a teretz.
Does it matter?
Yeah, I mean, it's a matter, they do it, but people have asked me, this is very much the gay.
Long shakers. I saw that today. That's Rabbi Ashkenazi.
He's the one who said it,
Yeah,
sure.
Big campaign.
Good stuff.
He's right.
And even the girls that are not married are not allowed to have long hair.
Wait, why are we getting sidetracked yet?
I'm just saying. Same topic.
What's wrong?
Anyways, but I want no, but today.
Can't go past the shoulders.
Anyways, let me just address. Today, if a halacha is speaking, someone wants to break the shidduch, there is not api halacha, don't, you're allowed to? There's no.
In cases when they break it, they don't do anything. They just say it's off.
So, that's it.
There's no, like,
So the
special
people
connotation.
come and ask for mechila, and I had a lady, Halababitcha lady. She broke up the shidduch, and the guy, Halababitcha lady, real Lubavitch, and the guy wrote her today everything is email. I'm Michael, you're not going to get out. Who knows? And so she came to me with her father. I said to her, there's nothing. There was the word means today nothing. Write a cup. There was no.
The ring back, that's why, probably.
He didn't give a ring. There was not yet time to give a ring.
Mom, would you give a ring after the chuppah?
That's the Lubavitch. Your way.
This was the Lubavitch.
A diamond necklace or something like that.
Nothing. She got nothing. It was a week after.
Fire gave cigars for $200.
Whatever it is, but at the end of the day, she dropped.
Not that's not what he wanted. He wanted $1 million.
$1 million.
Yes, that's really what he wanted.
I see you go back.
No, he didn't say he wanted $1 million. He's a very she's the daughter of a rich
$1
man.
million to be Michael.
Yeah.
Never told me to ask him.
What?
I know someone never told me to make sure to ask him. I don't know if you have to.
Yeah, you have to listen. You have to ask Michiel if you insulted anyone. I mean, but it's an insult. It's an insult because when the greatest pain for a person is to be rejected.
Yeah.
You know, we stop into the body and say, want us. The greatest pain is rejection. And the greatest geschmackheit when you feel someone accepts you. That's the reality we emotionally need. But Al Kaponim, coming back, so it's a Halacha, if a person wants to break a shidduch, there's nothing that a Halacha, especially where she really, the reason, this case what I'm talking about, she really realized there's something strange about him. She really, there was strange things after they got engaged. And I don't know, it's not important, but the halacha is, Shalalta, it's a nice thing to ask Mechila. If he doesn't want to give you Mechila, you can move on with life, nothing. You ask again, yes, 3 times, you go with 3 people, whatever you do, but there's nothing there, hocus pocus. No hocus pocus that she's not going to have children, that's what her father says. Maybe they can pay her, she's not going to have children, they know a story. Nothing to do one with another. Okay, Atkan. So this is Siv Kinyan Dvarim. So again, so engagement, coming back, that you make a Kinyan, it's a nice thing. I don't know exactly what it is, but the Halacha, it doesn't bind them to get married to each other. You know, the Kinyan only works with an object. You make a Kinyan that the Chos makes a Kinyan that he's going to pay money. If there's a get, he's going to pay money, and nothing else. So the Mechila eine Sicha Kinyan. If I say I'm moichel you a chayv, you don't have to make a kinyan. Or make a kinyan.
What's the logic? It doesn't make sense.
Well, I'm moichel you a chayv. You don't need a kinyan. The Gemara says.
It's the money thing.
Yeah. So moichel you know, do I have to pay you back the quarter that I owe you? Nah, moichel you. The finish. You don't have to make a kinyan that I'm moichel. It's mechila. Now I want to tell you interessante machlekes in the ksas and then it's not come out the ksas and the sivas all say that. This is a very much negeya. What is this negay? You know, what happens, I tell you a story, a simple story, it happened to me. I bought a suit in New York, the guy told me he fixed it. I go into the store, pick it up, come on, he never fixed the pants. Never fixed the pants. So I said, you know what, I thought to myself, I'm going to go back next time you bring back the pants, I'm going to get someone to do it. I never got anyone to do it. I had to go to New York. And I went to him. And I was thinking, going to New York, wait a minute, I was moichel him, whatever the alteration was. So can I change my mind now? Because I said clearly, when I came home, I put it on, he didn't fix the pants. I says, you know, I'm going to drag a cup and go back. And I didn't. I said, I'm moichel to myself. So can I change my mind?
You have to say it, you have to think it.
So the ksas and the nesivas bring a toises and they say, that mechila belev is not called a mechila.
You were mochel him?
Yeah, I picked up the pants, and he said he fixed it. That was part of the price. I come home, I put on the pants. He didn't fix it.
He doesn't know you went to him though.
Doesn't make a difference. So now there's a question: if I was moichel b'shas masa, can I go back to him and say to him, you know what? The pants is, you know, I didn't say, you know, I have to tell him, you know, I really was moichel you, or nothing. The mechila belev is not mechila. So the Chaynim hold mechila belev is not called a mechila. Based on the Tosis. What do you say? If you tell 2 people, they're not. No, they don't verbalize, but you have to question is what if he's told your wife. Yeah, no, that's still called belev. He has to tell him, he has to tell Adam, it has to be more than. Yeah. If he told us it's chayim, it's mavur that way. I once told somebody, so I think I told my wife. I looked it up. It has to be like more than just the moichel belev. But again.
Is there ever a transaction that thought does count?
Well, apichsidis a thought counts.
A donation to the shul.
So what's the chiddush there?
You know, there's a machlokes. No, because that is a neder. A neder is chal belev. Neder bitz is chal belev. That's a different thing.
No neder by tzedakah or something like that.
There is. No, the question is, do we say belev? But truma, we say it's chal truma. Machlokes is, but tzedukah, it's also belev or not. So machlokes are rishonim. Big machlokes are rishonim. The Gemara says, "V'nachsh v'lechem tremaschen." Truma, you could be mafresh belev. So the Mechagis Rishonim, how about all Nedurim? They're not Truma. So the Mechagis Rishonim, some Rishonim hold that Tzedukah, you Chai Belev, 2 days, Mechava brings Silchat Tzedukah. And the Chayim are Machmer. So Sofik Draisa, so you said Belev, what do you say?
That's what the Rambam passes.
But I'm on Hilchas Tzedakah. What do you learn? Hilchas Tzedakah? The Dayanim paskim, the Balev is love. Balev is not chal neder. It's only by truma. Okay, but neder is not chal. The question is, do we say truma cholki yotzebe or we don't say truma? Anyways, so the kitzur, you moichel someone balev, it's not called a mechila. Not called a mechila.
So in your case,
My case, you know what I did? I went back, I told him didn't fix my pants, I didn't give him a drusha, I just told him please fix it, I'm picking up this afternoon. That's it.
you paid him again.
I didn't pay him. I was annoyed at him that, I came home
Once
and...
he fixed your pants, are you chayiv to be meichel now? Even though you went out of your way and you had to come back and it's not
Well,
you're gonna tear up.
But Uden Lachaveiro, I don't walk around with the pay this. It's not worth it. It's not worth the energy to walk around being angry at people. I always tell people that's...
Maybe he should fix something else for you or throw in a free tire.
There is such a look, we're going to get later, there is such a concept in Choshe Mishpet. No, there is such a concept. What do you say?
No, but why is that ribbis?
He owed you money, he paid you late.
No.
No, he's asking something else.
You want me to forgive you? Hey,
No.
Hey, and
It says, this concept says only if he caused them a loss of money. And when Dina Shemayim, Dina do you can't. There's sometimes Dina Shemayim you could. There's sometimes even Dina Shemayim you can. So the Poskim says that he has to be fasher with you.
You had to take another taxi cab to get back to the store.
Or let's say if I would have had to
That's
pay,
fine.
right? If I would have had to take a taxi cab, right? I happened to visit my mother, who lives 3 blocks away, so. Okay.
Time is money, Rabbi.
Yeah, but
Someone should go out of his way then, if saying it to himself is not enough, people have to go out of their way to go to the guy and tell him I'm welcome, or to some witnesses or somebody.
No, we're talking about two separate issues. Someone hurts me, I don't walk around. I don't even notice. Sometimes people call me and says, I hurt you. That's a question. Or if you know he hurt you, other people did hurt you. So the question is, yes, I'm hurt, you moichel. Yes, I'm moichel you. Did I tell you the story what happened with someone's identity theft?
So what? Identity theft. We talked about it last week.
Talked about last week. So that's a good marshal. There was a guy, the Lubavitcher guy told me he wasn't Torah Tamima. It's called Torah Tamima. He was, and he was a bacher, and someone stole his identity. Also a big time. So much that the FBI came to him and the Secret Service, and he had no idea who did it, and he went through terrible. And then 15 years later now, the guy calls him up. He asks him mechila. So he asked him, by the way, were you caught? He says, no. How come? I'm not going to tell you why. But they never caught him. And he says, he looks back, he was one of these geniuses, but everything, he used all his geniuses in the wrong way. But he wanted to give him money. This guy who did it 20, 15 years ago, and he called me up, should I take his money or not? I says, you're allowed to take your money. He had enormous, he didn't lose any money because the banks, whatever the stuff, but it was enormous aggravation. And his tercha for his father, he was a young teenager, his father worked very hard, so I said, yeah, whatever he offers you, you should take.
Give it to his father.
No, that's not the point. The point is he doesn't need the money. He told me himself, I don't need the money, I have a good panasa, but I told him you should take the money.
Why was the child not to take the money? Why wouldn't he? What was the problem?
He said, how much money could he offer me? He understood he's not going to offer big money. I don't need the money, he says. He can pay me $5,000. Baruch Hashem, he says, it's not going to, I don't need the $5,000. That was everything.
He was made whole and never lost anything.
It was terrible aggravation. His father had to go down to the bank. You had to go to the bank and had to go this. And the FBI came to him. He says, I was a young teenager. I was 19 years old. I was frightened. I didn't know what the FBI, I first thought they're blaming me for it. And he went through a tough time. So I said,
Could he demand payment?
he could demand payment. Since he never had loss, he cannot demand payment, no. Even the Shemayim. No.
Going back to this with the pants. I'm talking to somebody like if you weren't going to use the guy's services, you weren't going to use him to fix your pants.
No, I paid for fixing the pants. Paid him extra money for alterations. And I went and picked up the suit, and he never was done. Came home to LA, I tried it on, so when I tried it on, I said to myself, forget it, the $15, I'm going to go to a guy over here and have it done. But I always tell people, we say we can do something and we don't do it. Forget it for someone else, even for your own sake. That's how we are. So I figured next time I'm going to New York, you know what, I'm going to take the pants, I'm going to New York anyways. Just a few blocks from. But I said in my heart, I'm moichel him.
But it wasn't it? Was that good enough?
No, that mechila was not a good mechila.
So let's say you've never went back to the guy
So,
to give him the pants.
right.
Ever.
So, but,
He's asking, but if
He owes him the $5.
if you want to be
Yeah,
mindful,
Lord, forever, the $5.
Yeah.
Unless you go to him and tell him.
oh, that's what you mean. Yes, that's what you mean. Oh, that's what you mean.
Obligated to do him a favor.
I'm not obligated, because I have no paid on it.
And the flip
Knowing
side is-
myself, if I would have fixed it here, if I wouldn't have been, I don't have to find a tailor, and my wife goes to a tailor but doesn't do pants. I would have to find a tailor. Shine.
But again, if you verbalize here, I'm moichel.
If I told two people I'm moichel, then I
Going
can't.
to aid him,
I
you're
can't.
not allowed to go
No,
back
no,
and
no.
demand him to fix it.
No, that's what I'm saying.
Awesome.
But I was not moichel verbally. I just thought to myself, try and forget it.
Now, are you allowed to go to the guy and say, look, I was moichel you, but I did pay you to fix these pants, and you never did.
Yes, you're allowed to do that.
You can do that.
Yes, I tell you what I did once. I bought a set of Mishnayos from, used to be owned by, not Chabad. Who owned it before? Should we guess and owned it? Taurus. Kagan owned it. I bought a set of Mishnayos for my son, who was 12 years old, the Kalsi Mishnayos. And about 2 years later, I'm learning Mishnayos of this, and I see it's missing a whole thing. Pialocha, if you use it, I have no right to return it. That means I was moichel. I'm not allowed to use it. So, and I said, you know what, Taka, big deal. So it's missing a few pages, but I really was annoyed. I'm a tough guy. I don't have an obligation. I was learning. So,
You're saying if you use it halachically, you
Doesn't
can't
make a
return it.
difference.
How are you supposed to know?
how who the moicha or milkoina
When you
doesn't
buy
make a
it, you're
difference.
supposed to check the whole book.
No, you're not supposed to check. No. You buy an animal, you find it's strafe, I could give it back to the moicha. A shechter it's strafe, it says headache. He didn't know. I could return it. But here, I was going to learn. I said, you know what, big deal. It's missing a few pages over here, But then I changed my mind. I went into that Torah. I told him, listen, api alocha, you don't have to give me back. I was moichel you, but I'm annoyed. I told him. So he said, don't worry, they have to give me back anyways. He said, no, he just said, no, he took out the chelik. Publisher. He says the publisher take it back all the time. I didn't say, I don't think I thought it was that way.
I was at David's house on Shabbat and they took a Gemara and it was upside down. The set of.
And he got it for his wedding, and it was like.
You just found out.
Yeah, he found out. You can see.
What if I find out for him? Can he still,
Yeah, I'm saying the halacha is, let me just explain that. If you have a right to be tough, to tell the guy, api halacha, you don't have to give it back. I use the sefer. That's what I told the Torah. You don't have to give it back, but it's annoying. So he doesn't. It looks bad for him, but it's. So I took advantage of the situation. So what? There's nothing wrong.
You think you used it because you opened the first page of the set?
No, I was learning Mishnayos and I was missing a few pages.
So at that minute that you found out, you can return it.
Yes, but it was Shabbos, and I said to myself, well, my son is 12 years old. He's Kahasi. Maybe he'll get a regular set.
So because you continued learning.
Yes, and I not was kidding. I was moichel him. Moichel, the whole thing. I was.
But you verbalize it in front of two Igor.
I don't have to verbalize. By chayfetz that has a mum you know about and you use it, you don't have to verbalize it. That is automatically
So if you
shulchan
wore
aruch.
your pants without having them tailored,
Right.
that would be the same as.
That would be the same. If you wear it, use it. That's a whole different sugya. Why that's that way? So that's a whole sugya. Why? Because it works on mafreya. It's a whole nasiva. So we'll get to it about
Are
Shishem.
you required to mochel somebody?
What?
Mochel somebody.
What do you mean? Why? If someone asks you mechila, you have to ask them to give him mechila. But not always. I told someone who was molested, talk about molestation. I hear you wrote a nice article. I have to find it. Said, someone told me I was in the hospital. Someone just told me, but I asked. A guy asked me he was molested, and the guy asked him mechila, and he says, I said, you don't have to be meichel. There's certain things you can't give mechila. You molest a guy, who suffers the whole life. If you patch the person, the pain is gone. It's fine. Pain is gone. It's easy to meichel. But these people suffer a whole life. He asked me because the frumma people do, to make you feel guilty. You know that? I ask you mechila, and you give it. You don't know. You're not meichel me. So the guy, he say the victim now is a new pekel on him.
Saying such a case of 3 times, even if it's 3 different places, 3 different times.
Depends what it depends. You see, depends if the guy really begs for forgiveness and he really is kodesh b'shtacha, he would forgive him. But how these people come. Zama moichel. He described to me how he asked mechila even.
You feel it.
You give someone a zetz.
But if
Zama
you're
moichel.
damaged and you still feel damaged
Right.
from what this guy did, you don't have to be Muslim.
You don't have to be meichel. If you live in Mishra Sedin, you have a right to be meichel. But if your guy is really asked mechila the right way, anything doesn't have to be that. It might say laz on someone. I know another story where a guy was moitzi laz on someone, horrible by get. A whole story many years ago. Same thing, if a guy wasn't a meichel for years, then they made peace. But story, with the may had to make a bun. For years he was not meichel. The story now came in the had to make a bun. So the guy was moitzi laz on him. So he was not mechuyev to be meichel. But years later, no one knows about it, no one talks about it, and certain things is you can't be meichel. A murderer, how could you be meichel a murderer? Kaim.
What about a repeat offender? Someone hurts you, you're meichel, and they do it again to you and again to you.
That is, you never ask mechila. That's a joke. That's not a mechila.
Is there an issue of meichel?
We do it to our wives too.
To the Eibushan every day. It's like,
I tell my wife when she tells me, I say chatusa v'sipshati. She says, you told me last time chatusa v'sipshati for that again. But it works with her. My wife it works. But when we do it, that's how couples do to each other. What do you say?
Is there an issue of a goy or a year?
A go, you don't have to be meichel, no.
There's no issue.
No issue. I just want to say quickly, the Kayim did tshuva, says in Medrash, in Zohar, Kayim did tshuva, and the Rebbeinu Shalom told him, the only taking enough, you're going to be murdered. The Kayim did tshuva. And the Rizal says, much more profound, Kayim has to come down every few generations, and he gets murdered again.
Yeah, that's tshuva and kapara. It's 2 different things.
Yeah, but that even though he did tshuva, but for murder, there's certain things you do tshuva, the chet is wiped off totally. Certain avedas you could do tshuva tomorrow. You do tshuva for murder. The guy, you murder the guy. So the Rizal says the Sar Oifen was Kain. You have to come down, and Moshe Beni killed the Moshe Beni killed the Ish Mitzri. He was also a giggle of Kain. Again, it happened. Every few generation he has to come down and die a horrible death.
and Yisrael was a good of kind.
The nefesh of the ruach of Yisrael. Yeah. Okay. Zug the Mechaber Vata. Zug the Tesh. Shnaim shekibli pashron bekinyan. They accepted to make a pshor bekinyan. The knas chamishim, and they made a deal that they make a knas. That a guy who doesn't listen, there's a fine of chamishim. Va'ach abshum echem mebalei dinim ashalom knas. L'kain abshura ain't word of klum. That doesn't mean anything.
What can you do? Nothing you can do.
The knas. So what does the knas help? The knas was if you can delay payment, you're gonna have to pay a knas.
All the class.
Yeah, but you can't say the knas was not made instead. The knas was made that in case you play games after you don't want to pay, you'll have to pay a knas too. You don't have to ask a goy mechila. Doesn't say.
You don't have to.
It's nice, darke shalom, but a goy could bring you to Bezdin, could take you to court. If he takes you to Bezdin, yes. If a goy takes you to Bezdin, it's very nice. But then Bezdin paskins has to paskin honestly. But the Bezdin has the right to paskin either din Torah or din Arkuas, whatever is the benefit for the Eid. But here, but the Bezdin cannot be Bezdin. That's very important. Even though there's a din hafkuas salvua, there's a din if the goy doesn't know that you owe money, you don't have to pay him. There's no chiv to pay. But Bezdin is not allowed to do that. If you come to Bezdin, a goy calls you to Bezdin, and Bezdin says he's not owes him the money. Bezdin has to mechayiv him to pay the money. Bezdin, if you come out Bezdin has to. If you don't come to Bezdin, if someone just asked me, he scratched the car and see the sign. I'm there, so the guy tells me, the from good says, I parked in and he told me to scratch the car. Other Vusan Afghan, he has no idea who he is. He looked around. No one looked. I says, today he doesn't look around. Maybe there's cameras. I don't know. The kid said, he asked me, I looked at the car. I know approximately. I see the car every day because neither he comes and says, do I have to pay? I says, if you know he's a guy, you don't have to pay. That's the halacha. You don't have to pay. But if you are on camera, then you should trades now.
That's not a case where the guy doesn't know that you owe money.
Yep.
He doesn't.
Someone
Doesn't know,
owes the
but
money,
doesn't know who me.
that it's you,
Right.
but
That's okay. Okay.
But this guy happened to crash into our building the other night.
There was such a thing here? Yeah.
Is the guy damaged?
What?
Is the guy damaged?
What Naaman? Guy has.
He comes and says,
He is also not Naaman. You come and you say one side is starting, guys, the other side is starting. Whatever the din is, the better the din is. There's no namunas. Why? Bez doesn't trust you more than him.
Does it happen that a goy calls a judo based?
I don't know. I've said the story once. I once get a Ingerman. Did I say the story of her? I will quickly say the story again. I have a very wealthy guy in my community comes to me that 3 Rabbanim send him as man. A goy is calling to the who's the goy? His lawyer. He went and he sued his lawyer in court for overcharging him. And I just couldn't believe my eyes. I have to see it. So I walk over to the guy. You send an azmuna, a goy to Yid? Yeah, there's a medrash tanchuma. You're worried about a medrash tanchuma? You call. He says, why didn't? I says, why do you think the goy wants to take the Yid to the Din Torah? Such a tzaddik. Very clear. So he explained to me in court. He subpoenas the papers. If he doesn't give up the papers, then there's sanction. Bezdin, he knows there's no subpoena. You can't subpoena. So I told him just ignore it. Said the Rav doesn't know cheshmish but from left to right. But then I found out one of his babatim works for this company, and thought he was going to get a big break with his ovti. That brought out his. But bottom line, he was so angry at me. And as a rabbi, I can never get annoyed. People are angry at me. This is just part of the job. No, I said to the guy, told the just ignore it, and as soon as he couldn't go to Bezdin, he was going to court, immediately settled. Because very clear, because he caught, he was going to subpoena the phone records. How many times you spend on my case? But you cannot use the Bezdin, a goy, to take advantage of the Bezdin. You understand? If it's Tama case, it doesn't make a difference either. It's not. Here it was very clear. The guy says Bezdin is not going to subpoena. Bezdin has no koich to subpoena. But the Bezdin does take this into consideration. You should know this. You sit in the Torah, a guy, we tell him bring the phone records, he doesn't want to bring, then we say Bezdin holds a dimaruma. Why are you afraid to bring the...
If there's a Geisha landlord and he has a Jewish tenant who's living there and he wants rent control and he says, I'm taking the Bezdin. There's no such thing as rent control. He wants to kick him out. Can he do that?
He cannot do that. Because he comes to a Bezdin, the Bezdin will pass him about the law of the land.
Law of the land. They say it's me this time.
Yeah, but the law of the land. He lives in the land here. He in God's the law in the land. It is a midas Sodom, but it's a law on the land. It's not. It's called midas Sodom is a little bit. It's not like I throw a rock at you, but it is a midas Sodom. But that law of the land is that way. You moved in knowing that you're going to have this problem. You can't kick him out.
So putting the law of land aside, if a Jew kills a non-Jew, what's the?
You're not allowed to kill a non-Jew.
I understand, but what happens?
what happens? They should arrest him. There has to be law and order.
I understand, that's law of the land, but all the halacha, what's the...
By halacha, there has to be law and order. We spoke about this a
Has to
lot.
be a law of the land.
You have to have law and order. This is one of the things about sexual abuse, that your people are so confused. If the Rashba says if we would need Aiden with Asra, how's the words of the Rashba? It would be lawlessness, anarchy. Say in English. That's the right word. Hefker. Shiurim Peiches. Shiurim Peiches the Rashba. The B'Yosef quotes the Rashba. Based on the Buddha B'Metzia, how the Bluza B'Reb Shimon, we gave a sheet about it. Bluza B'Reb Shimon arrested people and hung him. You know, the story, it's so bothersome that Tamid Chum don't know this. I had a Satman, a guy, a Dayanim, I explained to him what he was here. And it was like he was shocked. You know, that there's a Gemara, the Bluza B'Reb Shimon was appointed to be an FBI agent.
Right.
And he went, and first it was not. First he told the guy how to arrest. You know what what? So what did he do? He said, if you see a guy dozing off in the morning with a glass of wine, fine. If he's a Talmud Chacham, then he learned. If he does this and this panosana, if he has not this, not this, he's a robber, arrest him. And what did he do with the robber? They hung him. They hung him. So then if the Roman says, they found that he gave him advice, so let him be. And he went around arresting people. The Bluza B'Reb Shimon arrested people, and Sanhedrin didn't like it. So the Rashba says Sanhedrin didn't like it. You know why? Not because if Apitoid is not allowed to do it, he's a Musar, he's a Retzeach. The Bluza B'Reb Shimon caused people to die. He says it has to be along the land. If the Romans kill, the reason the Sanhedrin was upset, the Torah doesn't say a robber should be hung. It's not the Torah Digaway. So that's why he shouldn't have done it. But he's not called, it's not a milsa de chassidus. That's it. Not a masa, it's not a ritzeich, he's not a chassid.
On what grounds did he arrest him?
The grounds that he figured that he's a robber. Circumstantial evidence.
So why should I have to go to prison? Why is go to legal authority?
There's a lot, this week's Pasha, Elam Shvut Nas Tusim Lefneim, you're not allowed to go.
What? If I think so stole from me and...
A Yid or Goy.
Why should I go to prison? He stole. He stole all
A
the money.
Yid or a Goy.
What?
You're talking about who stole from you.
A yid.
A Yid, you report him to the police. If a guy came to you armed robbery, you report him to the police.
The business deal.
Business, you go to Bezdin. Maybe every person in business thinks, yeah, there's a ganav, a schwindler. I see. Right, and he says, you're a ganav, a schwindler. That's what we thought. We're talking about if a guy broke into your house and you know who he was, happened in Lakewood, it happened in Borough Park, they should go to the police, arrest him. Because if you don't go to the police, arrest him, do it again. If by not arresting him, he's going to do it again, he's going to do it again, he's going to do it again.
So what do you draw the line?
To draw the line? Draw the line if it's...
You have to go to a business.
If there's a sichsich between me and you,
Violence.
Yankee, there's a sichsich in money, I make a deal with you, and you scream, I'm a ganav, asking you, we go to Bezdin. A guy breaks into your house and stole from you. In Lakewood, there was a frum guy, a boy became a drug addict, and he was breaking into houses. And there was a big fight amongst the Rabbi, we should report him. You know, the same thing happened in Borough Park. In Borough Park, they did arrest them.
Saying if it's an argument, go to base station.
Yeah, because every time when you do business with someone and you feel he's not honest, the guy was screaming to me now on the phone, wants to take someone to best. Schwindler. I don't know the story. They made a deal and the guy didn't keep his deal. Is a Schwindler? I don't know. We have to hear the other side of the story.
Basically, business for civil matters.
Yeah, but the violent...
Whatever it is, then you go to bed.
What is Bezdin going to do? Tell him, don't be a ganav, don't be armed robbery? What is Bezdin going to do?
Now they'll tell him, now
I'll know. Now Bezdin's going to tell him, don't make armed robbery, don't break into houses. Oh, schon jetzt, the gechabte pachat, you know what I mean?
But back in the day, when Sanhedrin was seated, the temple was, there was a crime, if you will.
There was, the Rambam learns, there was a civil, they had, Bezdin worked also without the Dina Torah.
So it's not his marriage, right? So like
They gave Marcus Martyrs. You think there was, the Rashba says there's no one, I want to repeat this, I said this so often, no one murders in front of two people. You told me only the gangs. But we hear the news, they found this couple murdered, the Toronto couple. You hear this news, this guy. No one murders with Asrua. Wait a minute, before you pull the trigger, you know, and he has to pull the trigger, you know what I mean? And then he has to say, I don't care. No one, 99, how much percent? 99% of the murders is done, no one is around, and no one watched, and no one saw, at least he hopes so, but there's no aidem, no witness besides the gang murder. If we were only able to arrest such people, there would be murder, chaos, anarchy would be. Same thing with stealing. Most robbers, you think, rob in front of two aidem? So Bezdin is convinced that he stole, it has to be Bezdin is convinced. Bezdin is convinced, sometimes we know everyone knows O.J. Simpson did it. You know what I mean? Everyone knows he did it. Many such stories. He did. Who is he kidding? This is a Weberman. He didn't do it. Why was he locked up with 3 locks? Had nothing better to do, have 3 locks on the door. I mean, he did it. I mean,
when does Bezdin, when do they do that? They basically put you in a room, lock the door, and don't feed you, and that was it. The guy just,
what the Gemara says, the Rambam says on Etzicha. The Rambam says on Etzicha. Only on Etzicha when there's no Eidim, but Bezdin knows that he did it. And when your person eats Chazer twice, he gets Malkus. The 3rd time you don't give him Malkus, that's a Mishnah. But only on the Rambam says only on Etzicha, because at Etzicha you cannot let them get away with it. But other thing is up to Bezdin. So here, the Bluzer Berb Shimon held that he arrested Jewish people. The what?
Like a rapist in that case.
Same thing. Same thing. But it's up to Bezdin. Bezdin will say, hang him.
And we hold that Jew on non-Jew crimes, same as Jew on Jew.
You can't, if you, we don't hold it's the same crime. It is a crime. It is a crime because you can't have society run this way. If you're going to let a Jew get away with a crime that he killed a guy, then the guy is going to kill us. I mean,
Why does the Torah only give a monetary knas then for
why? That's a Kosov. You thought you need Adam. See, the Knas needs Adam. But the Bezdin has a right, whatever they think that it's what they should do. A guy raped someone, whatever Bezdin, give him lashes, put him, who knows, cut off his arm, who knows what. Guy used to hit people. So what does the Gemara say? If he cuts you, they cut off his arm. I told you the story of Noidi B'Hida. Noidi B'Hida, there was a guy he was living with his granddaughter. I told you the story of Noidi B'Hida. The Noidi B'Hida was a Megefa in the times of Noidi B'Hida in Prague. And the children were dying. He was going to Tanis, and after Chatzas Yom, we made a Shivas Bezdin. Anyone who knows, a 17-year-old girl comes and he says, imagine her grandfather is Mezana with her. Before she got married, even after that. And who is her grandfather? The Sofer of the city, who writes the Tefillin Mezuzahs. So the media called him and he asked him, is it true? And he was Maida. So he asked him, can I see which 2 fingers you write? And he had a hack, and at the Maruga hack, I say Ruga hack in English, it chopped his 2 fingers off.
So based upon that, if you live in let's say in a Muslim country where if you caught stealing an apple, they chop your hand off, right? And you catch a guy stealing, could you give that guy over to the authorities in that country?
See, that's the depends on what it says. The Bluzer of Shim held yes. The Bluzer of Shim held yes. Sanhedrin held no. That's the Machlekes in the Gemara.
But where do you draw the line between Rabbi Lezer and Shimon? It's his job.
Right. But you see that it's not a Musa.
No, he told people before.
It's not a Milsa de Chasidisa.
No, but where do you draw the line?
There's no drawing a line.
It's too excessive.
It's not a Milsa de Well, the Torah doesn't say you should chop his hand off, but according to the Bluzer of Shimon, yes, and Sanhedrin said not. And it's not a Milsa de Chasidisa, the Rashba learns. Because we don't. But if you can't stop it, the Rashba says if there is no way to stop it, then you got to do it. We can't see. If again, I explained it to people. Leiby Kletsky. Who was the murderer? I forgot the name. Aaron. So Levi Aaron, Api Torah, we can't do nothing to him. There was no one saw him kill him. He was Maida. I knew the Mesa Matzvarusha. Api Torah, person cannot self-incriminate. I knew the Mesa Matzvarusha. So Api Torah, I always tell people, why was everyone so zekocht about the murder of Leiby Kletsky? If you follow the Torah, The Torah says he's not Naaman, there was no Adam, so they found blood in his house. Maybe someone else did it. We have no idea who did it. We have no two Adam. The Torah says we hadn't. Why would Sanhedrin do such a case?
You can't believe him, right?
Can't believe him. The din is not. The Torah says don't believe him. But what is the Rambam says? Such a case, they're not given 40 years prison. They constantly keep and let him die. It's not worth living.
So my question is, would the prudent thing be to do in such a case? If it's not B'shas Ma'aseh, obviously B'shas Ma'aseh you got to call the police and everything like that. If it's not B'shas Ma'aseh, would the prudent thing to do to go to a Rav or to a Bezdin and say, this is what happened, and let that Bezdin they say, yes, go to the police, or no, it's because exactly saying that it makes difference. If in this country we say that would be too extreme, they try.
I don't know. That's the fight in the world. The fight, but the fight in the world. This is the fight that they're arguing. Do you need a Rav to tell you to go? Yeah, it's sometimes good to tell the Rav because people make up stories. I just had in my community, a guy was getting divorced and he made up stories that her father-in-law molested children. So he came to me. He says, "I'm not there. If you really believe it is, go call social service." He called and they found nothing. They took the children out of school never, and they asked them there, and then found lo minei lo miktsuse. This guy made up a story. Saying, but this whole controversy about sexual abuse, there's no way you could stop a ganav, sexual abuse. They don't do it in front of people.
No, I agree. I understand what I'm saying, but so it seems like the prudent thing to do would be to go to a Rav though, to get the okay, because like you said, sometimes there's false accusations also.
Right. But I always tell people, you know it was done to you, go to the police.
No, not if you know it's to you.
No, I'm sorry. The guy, normally the guys come to me, the guy who was molested, that's how I was first exposed. I also didn't know the horror of it. And in the rehab center, I suppose, speaking to people, so you know who did it, you go straight to the police. When a guy tells it to me, then I have to be choshesh. How to do it. But the victim, no question, he should go to the police. See, I want to explain to you something. It comes to sex, people become blurry of thinking. I tell people, let's take the word sex out of it. Let's imagine there's a guy who goes around the schools and poisons the food, and the children get sick and they cannot live a normal life. Ruins the whole digestive tract. I'm sure he puts poison. No one would say, yeah, you saw it, didn't see. Really, the gunner, there's the shaygetz. You beat the daylights out of him. You don't say, who told you, did you see? I don't know, it gets to sex, people get, I think, blurred vision, I call it.
What's your responsibility as a Rav if somebody comes to you and tells you?
Responsibility of every person, not just the Rav.
Probably more people would come to you.
Yeah, I've put 4 people into jail.
So you
not enough, maybe.
Understand. So do you publicize in the community? Do you go directly to the police?
I told, the first time it was many years ago, a doctor called me up, and he's a Yiddish pediatrician. He says this child was molested. And the doctor asked the child who did it to him. The child said her father. So he said, I'm not going to lose, that was years before he was going to lose his license. Then the past, you lose your license if you don't. So I said to him, please don't tell me who, what, and when, just go straight to the police. And he reported, the guy was arrested. No one knew what, and people thought it was Dayanim and this, and I don't know, that I didn't know what sexual molestation is so addictive. I thought he did it to his own daughter, imagine. If he did it to his own daughter, who else did he do it? He sat in jail for a while. And then later I found out that if he does it to one, he does it to who knows how many. And the story with Chabad, I told you, but the mother called me up. I told, please don't tell me what school you are, but just go straight to the police. It was a story with Yantav. Afterwards I found out. And also, whoever runs the Chabad then, he was screaming at me. So I said to him, "Ich bin nicht Chabad, schreinisch," and hung up on him. Don't scream at me. But I said to him, what do you want? How are you going to stop a molester? How are you going to do it? Nothing. It's Allah from Loisama da Damracha. It's very, very important to know that, because these people do not stop, and the people who happen to are suicidal. I know 2 cases in the rehab who committed suicide. Guy who was 32 years old with 2 children committed suicide. Before I went there, I used to see him. And he told me those stories. He was a Yosem, and the Rebbe took advantage and raped him. Not just molested. Mamish raped him. And he couldn't live with himself. And he that's why he was on drugs, and then he OD'd. And he had a fine wife, and he had a good business. He wasn't lepers. And then another story. Then you hear, and people say have more stories than that. Ask yourself, I would take sex out of the story. You have a guy who sneaks into a school. He cuts the leg off of a child. He cuts a leg off. No one say, how do you know? How do you know he did it? You have just a sex staker, you would be the dad outside of it. No one say you need a rabbi. You need a rabbi to go ask if you're allowed to report him. I don't know what it is. It comes to sex, became so blurry.
I'm sure it's happened. Husband physically abused her. You tell them
I tell them, no one could protect you but yourself. More than once people came to me. He says, I don't know the truth, and I know you're going to quote me, but I'm telling you, if you know that you're in danger, you go to the police and get a restraining order. How do I know? We know in this community there was a lady murdered.
Yep.
And there was in Flatbush there was twice women were murdered by their husbands. So how can there's nothing. Murder could hurt her very badly. So when a woman calls me up, I say, the truth, you're the only one. So, if it's true that you feel like in danger, you get a restraining order. Because sometimes people have demyonis. You know how you say demyonis in English? Imagination. It's true. A therapist explained to me that a lady had machinatic demyonis about her husband, and her husband never did it. She was abused by her father, so she blamed everything. Every time she thought her husband would be angered at her, in a picture he was going to hit her now. Her father used to hit her till she was 19 years old, something like that. It was a modern story many years ago, a therapist explained to me. There are people walking around with demyonis, or...
What's the term?
Demyonis. Illusions.
What's the din on someone who's only accused and not convicted? Say there's a
community.
General knowledge.
So if a Rebbe was accused, so you have to fire him. You have to pay him his yearly the Shiurim, just because he was accused. But maybe it's true.
Why do you have to pay him?
Because maybe it's not true. You have no right to break the contract just because.
Accusation, you have to fire him?
Yes. How do you know he's not going to do it? Maybe he's going to do it again.
He's safe.
How do you know?
Are you saying he's talking about the case where you know the guy?
No. He's a child. Let's say one child accuses.
So today,
Well, that means any woman that
kids are
accuses-
very sophisticated today. The kid says, my Rebbe...
I spoke to someone, a lady who does it for the city. And now from lady, she said, when children say it, 99% of the time it's true. The only time it's not true when there's a divorce and the wife,
So if a kid comes forward, he's 25 years old, he says, Rebbe so-and-so molested.
if you know it's true, go report it.
And some parent calls the Rosh Yeshiva and says, hey, this happened.
Mechesh mi boy. Yes.
How should the community generally treat that person? That there's a shot shortage?
Just not to teach children. We don't know it's true. Just not to teach. One person says, but what happens? It's 30 people. Like in London, they say it's 30 women who came forward. I don't know if it's true, but that's what they say. The 30 women came forward. That's what they say. Or a Yontif, the story with Yontif. His first time was one child, and then he sat in jail, and it was coming out of the woodwork. That's why he ran away. He came out of jail, and a month later, the police were looking for him again because they had new people came forward and they tried to arrest him. That's why he ran to South America. He made a get 11 o'clock at night, and he, she shouldn't be an aguna, so we convinced him to give a get. We don't make a get at night. We made a get at night, and he just left the country.
Did the people who helped him, or they
No one helped him. He just crossed the border on his own. That's not true. I knew I was involved, and I was annoyed that he was going to do it, but we were afraid that she'd be a gun. It'd be a lot worse. But he was on the run.
So helping her get the get.
Yeah, but he was on the run. He's not going to be a Malamed. He's running for his life. He wound up in Argentina, and from Argentina. He's on the run.
Amalam is in Israel.
He's in Israel.
After the fortune, he goes to another cave.
So why don't they should put him on the called.
He is, but no
People-
one knows where he is right now.
Okay.
Next to Charleston.
That's why it's probably good if you kill him.
I'm beginning to like you.
Well, to do. But why should you kill him? Because he keeps on doing it. He's a relative.
But these people have my grandfather that went to Switzerland. Back then, there was a guy who was caught, a Jewish guy was caught as a rapist. Back then, they said rapists they used to castrate him. But because he was a Jewish guy, they asked the rabbi, the Rav, and my grandfather kind of asked him if they could do it. There was a whole system back and forth. The letters correspondence with all their bottom at the time. My grandfather took the position that because you call him a rapist, it's not Shas Ma'aseh, and he said he's a perpetual rapist. He always has the classification as a rapist because he's going to keep doing it again.
So your grandfather.
Did it, but back then we know today that castrating doesn't help. It's these kind of things.
Doesn't help.
No, just because it's about power. It's not about they would have been.
But he doesn't have kishiever. I thought once you castrate a person, he doesn't have kishiever. He can't rape anymore.
No, yeah, but it's a lot of times about power.
It's not. They consider that cruel and unusual.
They consider
It works.
But if it's not cruel,
Does
does
it
it
work?
help? That's the question.
They say it helps.
I thought once you castrate him, he doesn't have kishiever. He can't be raped anymore.
But it can hit someone with the back.
No, but I thought he'd lose his desire. That's what I was told. I have no idea.
American society doesn't allow it.
Yeah, Americans have a shiga. Some shiga. Okay, let's. Any other question while on the topic? It is a very confusing topic. I don't know why, but
A big rub in London
Yeah.
on video saying Shumai from don't go to police.
no, not only. I was told in Jets about this Rabbi Friedman. So all I know is, how did I know about this? Because it looks like it happened to one of them. But he was so angry 2 days ago, and he was asking me, "Do you know Rabbi Friedman?" No, I don't know who's Rabbi Friedman. What happened? So that's when I told him to read it to me. But everyone has today. She read me. I was shocked that he would say such a thing. But see, the child is very clear. This young boy happened to him because he was so hurt. So this Rabbi Friedman, whoever, I don't know what he wanted. I didn't listen to the video. Probably he said something, and this victim was hurt now. Because I tell over to people like this. Eve is a machlekes in the Gemara when Eve lived. You know that. Muhammad learns he was the son-in-law of Yankov, married Dina. Muhammad says he was Zman Moshe, Man Yermia. Muhammad says Lahoyu v'nanivra. So the Welt zog, that was the next pain that Eve have. A mensch geht durch Gehenna my whole life, and then it's nothing. Yes, Lahoyu v'nanivra. That's mamish.
That's the biggest.
So when you tell a guy like, and I understand the Babish is an important person, this Rabbi Friedman, so this young bocher heard her speak, and he was so hurt, because the guy says it's nothing. This is a very painful thing when you tell a person it's nothing. The truth is, if you ever argue with people, tell them, let's take the word sex out of it. Let's say you have a meshugana who attacks a lady, cuts her toes off. Or he gives them poison and cannot eat anymore for the rest of their life. But Leibi Kletsky, no one had to have a minute. Hey, wait a minute. The Chayid, the Shem Shabbos. There's no Edom. No one, you noticed? But Leibi Kletsky, no one came said, how do you know it's true? It's only circumstantial evidence. If she didn't do it, maybe.
People said that. The same people said that.
I don't think so. No. You didn't hear this. It comes to sexual molestation. I get phone calls of mechatesam. Okay.
Depends on who's being accused and who's doing the accusing.
Oh, that's something else.
That's
Something because of the subject. That's because of
because there's a concept that we know somebody who's admired, like the happened just now in Williamsburg. He's admired. So everybody right away, you want to defend. It's human nature. You want to defend that kind of person.
No. I think it has to do with sex. Because there are plenty of people who people admire and they found that he's a ganav, and they mamish ripped them apart. There was a Rebbe many years ago, they found that he's a ganav. He borrows money and he invests them, or in New York, no one was at first admired. I don't know, it comes to sex, people either have a hard time. Sex is a very difficult topic for people.
Is Chilul Hashem coming to play here?
No. Why is the Chilul Hashem?
I'm joining.
Well, people ask me, what's Chilul Hashem? For a box of apples, there's always going to be a rotten one.
Okay, it's a Chilul Hashem and you try to cover it.
If you cover up. Satna made the biggest Chilul Hashem. Because they intimidated the whole thing. They made the Chilul Hashem. There is going to be in every community.
Is that what they're thinking?
In Yiddish, there's a very powerful saying in Yiddish. Yiddish has always such powerful saying that every community has its genuvim and shiguim. We don't have to borrow from each other. Every community has its misfits and has its thugs and it has its crazy people. We have ours, London has theirs, Crown Heights has theirs, and Borough Park has theirs. It's part of society. There's always going to be a box of apples. There's always going to be the Fashimilta ones. That's what it is. Shine. The worst thing is what you explained it to me, that these people don't get healed, ever. People says maybe this, and they don't get healed. Look at the church. For them, it's a Chilul Hashem, whatever you call it, and people are angry because they covered it up. Yeah, but then, I'm just saying, it's like I guarantee you, if a priest would have stole money, the first time they would have caught him, they would have just bounced them out. When it comes to sex, I don't know exactly what it is. I don't know how to. I'm not a Hawaiian society. There's no question you have a priest who steals money. Without a question, they will bounce him out. They know that it's a crime. I mean, if I knew, I didn't. The first time I found out it's a crime, I saw a New York Times article when I was about 23 years old. I barely knew how to read English, and it described what sexual abuse is. When I was 20, that's the first time I was exposed to it. So if I knew about it at age 23, just seeing a New York Times article, all these people know how bad it is. You think this Galuchim didn't know? Whatever it is, the archbishop over here. It comes to sex, like the Yidden and Goyim, they look at it as they don't have a clear sight how to see it. I'm not sure why, but that's the Metzias. I always tell people, when they argue, change the crime to something else. No one said by Leiby Kletsky, like all of a sudden came, how do you know? And there are plenty of people, Okay. We're up to Yidim. Toina Baldin, this happens all the time, Rabbi saying. Finally, there's a Psak Bezdin, and the guy says, oh, yeah, I'm going to pay. What do you want? What's the rush? He says, employee Baldin Shloikovu lives man. I'll do it, I'll pay. There's a din in Choshe Mishpat. Once you owe a person money, you have to pay immediately. You got to sell your house. It's not his chayes. The Buddha Dinim have a minig, they give him a few months. They give a few months, and that's what they do. But Halacha, there's no such a thing. You owe my guy money, you have to pay. Someone showed me a cartoon many years ago. A guy wins the lottery, and he says, I'm going to, do all this thing, and if some money left, I'll pay my debts. I'll take a cruise, and those. That's one of the chayvus. The last thing is going to pay his chayvus. I tell this to young people. Your person takes a loan, he has a chrayus to pay it back to the last penny. He has to sell his house, he has to sell his shtramel, there's no excuse like Okay, Imriven Hivche de Shimon. This is a very important machaba. Imriven Hivche de Shimon. Le Masroi, Uleita le Mumen Shoidunu Nulov. I had mamish such a story. Mamish such a story. A guy came to me and he said to me, I have to settle this lawsuit because the guy who I went into business threatened, if I don't, he's going to master me to the IRS. Because it was...
What do you want? What's coming to him?
No, it wasn't even coming to him. It wasn't coming to him. The same thing. They had a sichsach, but the guy the other guy threatened him, you take me to court, go to Bezdin, either one, I'm going to master you. So the guy settled, and he made him a Sidis Medua, mamish. He made him a Sidis Medua, and he came to me, and I said to him that the best thing Sidis Medua is not going to help later unless we hear, maybe you tape the conversation again. And I don't remember, the bottom line is, he settled, and whenever he was niftar, I told his children told him, we know the story, but these people are mafias. Mamish mafias. Now we have nothing to be afraid because it was my father who didn't pay taxes on it, but you could take him. They're mamish mafia people. It's not worth it, the money. But the Rebbe Chabe says, if you made a Mesidus Medua, see, if you don't make a Mesidus Medua, sometimes there's a sechsech. I will argue, and the guy says, if you don't give me the money, I'm going to the IRS. So you gave him the money, maybe you gave him because you said, get him off my back. If I owe him, I don't owe him, I'll pay him. But if you're Moisa Medua, you're saying, if I don't owe him the money, I don't want to pay him. And then you sit down and says, Itaka doesn't owe him the money. So then he has to give him back the money. You understand?
How many people have to make it in front of?
2 people, 2 Eidim. Sidis Medua just need 2 Eidim.
There's no statute of limitations in Dinamum.
No, Dinamum is there is no statute of limitation.
Theoretically, you can wait past the statute of limitations of the government, the IRS.
Oh. Yeah, but the guy told me he could have gone now anyways because he can't do it to them anything.
Right, I'm just saying.
Yeah, for sure. There's no statute of limitation in Torah. The Gemara says, you talk about believing Lashon Hara. The Gemara says, Shviyas Hashem Tiyeh Ben Sheneim. This week's Parsha, Shviyas Hashem Tiyeh Ben Sheneim. So the Gemara says that when you make the person swear, Bezdin says, Suri mal olah hashor me'ela. So the Gemara has the kasha bishloima, the one who's swearing is a rasha. Maybe it's not, but the guy that. What is the guy that's fair? I gave him a pkudim, and he's denying it. I gave him a gold watch. I gave him a gold becher. Who knows why? Why should I? You should have been careful who you give your money to. So you were called a rasha because you were not careful who you invested your money with. So Rashi learned, that's what Rashi explains the Gemara. You do business with someone, you got to know. You do business with someone, make sure the guy is a person that is an honest person. You never know for sure, but you have to, when you do business, you have to make sure, know that the guy's honest. If you know the guy's not honest, a big businessman told me that as soon as he sees the guy's a dray cup, I don't know business with him. As soon as he starts draying a cup, very, very successful businessman, he told me years ago already. Because I've learned already, they drays now a cup, tomorrow he's going to dray who knows what. Even with the star, even with the document. I'm not interested in headaches. But that's what the Chazal say. Okay, I'm going to stop over here by saying.